It's easy to get distracted by the noise. Tariffs, politics, and headlines that make it sound like the world is falling apart. But underneath the surface, something extraordinary is happening. Something that could quietly reshape the next decade of global power, innovation, and artificial intelligence. Cathie Wood just described what might be the most overlooked economic shift of 2025. The United States may have just triggered the biggest corporate tax cut in modern history, without anyone really noticing. On paper, the corporate tax rate is still 21%. That's what you'll hear in every headline. But buried inside a bill signed on July 4th are new depreciation rules, and they completely change the equation. Manufacturers, R&D firms, AI companies, software developers, they can now expense almost everything they build immediately. Factories, servers, chips, robots, algorithms. Instead of depreciating costs over 10 years, they can write them off in year one. The result? The effective corporate tax rate drops to between 10 and 12%. That's lower than anywhere else in the developed world. Germany's around 30, France 25, Japan 30, the UK 19, and the US 10 to 12. What does that mean in practice? It means that America just became the world's biggest magnet for capital, the most profitable place to build factories, AI infrastructure, and research labs. We're not talking about small numbers. Imagine $1 trillion of global investment searching for the best after-tax returns. Suddenly, the math points to one place. Every dollar invested in AI hardware, robotics, and data infrastructure inside the US now goes almost twice as far. That's not just a corporate story. It's a story about the future. Because tax incentives decide where technology evolves fastest. Think back to the 1980s. Reagan's tax cuts and deregulation didn't just move money, they accelerated the personal computer revolution. IBM, Microsoft, Apple, all products of an environment where investment was cheap and risk was rewarded. Now imagine the same dynamic, but for AI. Cathie Wood believes this change moves us from a rolling recession to a rolling recovery. But not an ordinary recovery. A productivity-driven one. Machines doing more, humans coordinating faster, capital compounding through code. It's what economists call a non-inflationary expansion. Growth without overheating. Because when productivity surges, you can increase output without driving up costs. And here's where it connects to futurism. Artificial intelligence doesn't grow linearly. It compounds. Once models train faster, they help design the next models. Once robots assemble cheaper chips, they help build smarter robots. The feedback loops tighten and timelines collapse. The main brakes on this system have always been capital and regulation. Companies could only invest so fast before taxes and compliance slowed them down. But now, both constraints are loosening at once. Cathie said the word 3 times: deregulate, deregulate, deregulate. AI, healthcare, crypto, all being set free. The first executive order of the Trump administration was to rescind Biden's AI regulatory framework. Whatever your politics, the effect is the same. It removes the early leash from the most transformative technology humanity has ever built. Combine that with a 10% effective tax rate on R&D-heavy industries, and you get what might be the single largest coordinated economic incentive for AI innovation in history. That's how you get a productivity boom. That's how timelines collapse. It's 1995 again, but instead of the internet, it's intelligence itself going online. Now let's zoom out. The mainstream narrative says the dollar is weakening, that tariffs will crush trade, that inflation will erode everything. But capital flows tell a different story. If the US becomes the global hub for post-tax profitability, every major corporation will need dollars to build there. More demand for dollars means a stronger dollar. Just like during Reaganomics, when the dollar doubled in value over 5 years. That shift could flip global markets. Gold could fall. Bitcoin could stall, at least temporarily. Because a strong dollar is like gravity. It pulls capital inward and tightens liquidity elsewhere. But here's the twist. Bitcoin isn't just digital gold anymore. It's also technology. A decentralized computing network with its own innovation curve. And technology doesn't die in a strong economy, it thrives. So what happens when cheap capital meets deregulated innovation in a nation already leading the world in AI, robotics, and semiconductor design? You get acceleration, faster breakthroughs, denser data infrastructure, smarter automation, self-learning systems managing supply chains, healthcare diagnostics, and defense networks. We've talked about the singularity, the point where AI exceeds human intelligence. Cathie Wood might have just described the economic singularity that precedes it. A world where productivity no longer depends on human labor. Where GDP growth is driven by algorithms, not population. Where taxes, policy, and code merge into one self-reinforcing loop of machine intelligence and economic expansion. And it's starting now. But here's the paradox. This kind of transformation doesn't feel like a boom at first. It feels like stagnation. Jobs shrink. Old industries die. College graduates can't find work. The data looks grim. That's what Cathie calls the rolling recession. Each sector slows before the next takes off. But underneath, capital is repositioning itself toward the future. The economy is not dying, it's reprogramming. By the time the mainstream realizes what's happening, it's already too late to catch up. So, while the world argues about tariffs, the US just engineered a global tax arbitrage that might fund the next industrial revolution. The 1980s had microchips. The 1990s had the internet. The 2020s have intelligence, artificial and accelerated. The real revolution isn't coming from headlines. It's coming from spreadsheets, depreciation schedules, and algorithms. Quietly, invisibly, relentlessly, the code of the future is already compounding. The next few years might decide whether we merely use AI or merge with it. Because when economic policy aligns with exponential technology, the future doesn't just arrive, it erupts. And the question is no longer whether AI will change everything. It's whether humanity can keep up. If you've made it this far, you already know how fast the world is changing. Every video on this channel takes days of deep research, analysis, and verification to cut through the noise and track what's really happening beneath the surface. If you want to help me keep doing that, to stay ahead of the curve while the future accelerates, consider joining the Patreon. Your support directly funds the research, data tools, and late nights it takes to follow an exponential world in real time. Join here, https://patreon.com/futureforged.